Attention, 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 missive, issued by FTMS Union-Karrakin to all hands, at 0300 KST, LRED station Brick 02 registered a 6 Sigma confirmed breach at local termination shock. Extrasolar origin, blue shift, multiple objects within radian. LRED Brick 02 can say with high confidence that XOBJ1 is directed, coherent, hostile, expected arrival in local Karakis space is in the range of 1 to 3 months. As of 0600s I have issued an order of engagement supported by this evidence, with assent from VFTMSs 01 through 10, this order of engagement is true and underway. All ships shall gather at the following breakpoints, all ships shall orient towards up 4 radian and engage designated targets. Laureline, Israswal, Ora, Previsa, La Punta. Our endeavor is the defense of our home, we are correct in this stance, and shall conduct ourselves accordingly, CDE. CDE, concursus delenda est, or, Union must be destroyed. A few short centuries after contact, peaceful diplomatic cooperation between Union and the new Federation had deteriorated to the point of open warfare. Reactionary elements had gripped both governments, resulting in the Second Committee taking control of Union and a coalition of new Anorum firebrands gaining majority control of the new Federation. The long reign of the Union's First Committee ended following what the Anthrocovenist movement on Cradle saw as repeated acts of complacency in managing other stellar states, refusing to rein in the UN and the new Federation chief among them. On Karakis, the new Anorum movement demanded the new Federation push harder to move the polarity of galactic power from Cradle to Karakis, furious that their representatives had been so passive and accommodating to Union's demands. These boiling waters spilled over with a bomb attack on the UNS Pilgrim, a diplomatic yacht sent with a small party of Union officials to tour Karakis. Destroyed by militant hagiographers, while docked above Arudyi, the Pilgrim became a rallying cry on Cradle for those who wanted Union to be a more aggressive central power. For the Second Committee, the Pilgrim's destruction was the first crisis their new government had the power to address. Union responded by announcing a proportional strike. It would raise a fleet, send it into Karrakin space, and cripple their shipyards. On Karakis, the Pilgrim's destruction showed Union could be hurt. Previously, Union near-lighters appeared largely untouchable, being built from far more advanced patterns than those available on Karakis. The hagiographers, having made Union bleed, were lauded as heroes who did what they needed to do to preserve Karrakin glory. Hawkish elements of the new Federation voted en masse to raise levies and bolster their fleet. Union had announced its incoming strike, and the Karrakin people did not want to back down. Months passed, Union's fleet burned for Karakis. The new Federation sent its own picket flotillas out in a broad defensive bubble around the world. Hagiographers continued to agitate across Karakis, Arudyi, and nearby Ispasalar, whipping the populations into a fervor. Using tactics developed in its earlier wars, the Karrakins engaged the approaching Union fleet at extreme range, trading missiles, and middle-confidence predictive kinetics as the encroaching fleet broke through the termination shock of Karakis' home system. Both fleets held their main batteries in reserve. At full power, the Union fleet was still a month real-time away from its destination. The meeting place was a stretch of nothingness known as Cantus, priest, in the old tongue. As the ships grew closer, skirmishes flared, and the predictability gap closed. The new Federation fleet picked up black gigaton kinetic projectiles fired by the Union fleet, gliding silent and cold through frictionless void. This far out, they were easy enough for ships to sight and adjust around, but countering that ease was the difficulty of choice. Union, the new Federation fleet masters realized, hadn't targeted their fleet with the salvo, they had targeted Karakis and Arudyi. The fleet masters had a choice to make. They could order their ships to continue engaging the Union fleet, ignoring the kinetics in the hopes that the Union gunners had miscalculated orbits, and potentially stop the fleet well outside of visual range of Karakis, or they could divert, change their courses and attempt to intercept the kinetics in an attempt to prevent them from impacting on Karakis or Arudyi. At the range Union was engaged with the new Fed fleet and Karakis beyond, the fleet masters had a moderate to high confidence that at least one of the projectiles would find a target, an unacceptable outcome. The new Federation fleet masters decided to break course and intercept the projectiles. Union's ships closed the gap and engaged the fleet, opening up on their targets with high-confidence kinetics, missiles, and energy weapons. On paper, the Karrakin fleet, larger, more organized, better equipped, with better rested crews, fighting on their home turf, should have won. However, the Union admiral's diversionary attack split the new Fed forces into small beleaguered groups of isolated ships, each chasing a different projectile. Union's fleet was able to attack their foes in small groups, overwhelming the parts before they could form a greater sum. But the loss of the new Federation fleet through a combination of capture and destruction was not completely in vain. Most of the projectiles launched by the Union fleet were intercepted, preventing a massacre on an unfathomable scale. One kinetic slipped through and hit Karakis, illustrating what could have happened had the full flight not been intercepted. The projectile slammed into the ocean a few miles off the coast of Delamar, a city with a population of roughly 20 million souls. The ensuing earthquakes and tidal waves devastated the city, killing hundreds of thousands of people and throwing up turbulent storms, mere fallout, triggered by the traumatic impact, with an environmental cost that trailed on for decades and contributed to the ongoing casualties of millions more. Weeks later, Union's ships arrived in system, engaging the remaining pickets, mostly subline corvettes, mothballed old capital ships, converted yachts and shuttles, and eliminating them. Karakis, surrounded, with her fleets beaten back and a raw wound open on the surface of their world, prepared to surrender. The world below howled with air raid sirens and the clamor of people fleeing to their municipal shelters, the bellies of Union ships scraping the sky, flaring bright off Karakis' atmosphere. But the invasion never happened. Karakis, its anti-orbital defenses either destroyed or dry of ammunition, never fell. With little fanfare, the Union fleet pulled back. Karrakin observatories reported torch signatures angling for cradle. Something else, it seemed, needed Union's desperate immediate attention. On Karakis, Union's retreat did not feel like victory. Delamar smoldered from Union's kinetic strike, the wounded and dead littered the streets. Damage control and fire suppression teams scrambled across the city, attacking fires and collapsed buildings. Sirens echoed across the flattened city. The footage of Delamar raised by Union prompted widespread anger from the hagiographers, who redoubled their agitation efforts as their ranks continued to swell. The houses, angered by the seemingly ineffective resistance mounted by the government of the new federation, decided on their next moves. Capitalizing on the popular hagiographic movement, the major houses gathered together their representatives and voted no confidence in their leaders. As Union's ships departed, the new federation was replaced by a new government, operating largely along the same organizational principles as its precursor and comprised of the heads of each house. As a nod to the Karrakin homeworld, a move meant to re-emphasize the unity its members ultimately shared, the new government, to cheers and fanfare, declared itself the Federal Karrakin monarchy. The first acts of the Federal Karrakin monarchy were the rebuilding of throne Karakis and the establishment of the federal fleet, beating the recruitment drum with a salvo of chants, speeches, texts, and other media urging the peasantry, minor nobility, and surviving veterans to enlist. Concursus delenda est, the first order uttered in the Battle of Cantus, was the rallying cry. The reason for Union's sudden retreat remained unknown to the FKM until later, though there were hints in the form of malfunctioning technology and machine mines. It was the Deimos event, triggered at 3000 U, that interrupted the Second Committee's push to dominate Karakis. SECOM, unsure what enemy it faced in its local system, issued a desperate call for all fleets to return in defense of Cradle. Without Ra's unknowing intervention, the invasion of Karakis would have occurred. Union survived the Deimos event, though the phenomena of 3000 to 3002 U forever altered its course. The first contact accords were signed following the siege of Mars and Monist I. Ra disappeared into the blink. The Second Committee, reeling, sought a way to assert itself, and found one where it left it, Karakis and the new Federal Karrakin monarchy, gearing up for war. The Second Union-Karrakin War never happened. Utilizing the first NHP prototypes to pilot largely autonomous ships, Union outpaced the Karrakin's fleet craft capability, a fact that became quickly apparent in early skirmishes. However, the Karrakins burned with patriotic fervor, and the shipyards and rallying halls of the Empire were roaring with activity. Two things quickly became apparent to the stewards of the throne: that Union would ultimately win another war, but not before half the concern burned with it, and with billions of souls from both sides thrown on the pyre. Negotiations were swift as both sides realized the possibility of profit. Union agreed to help expand Karrakin infrastructure in exchange for a halt to the construction of the Federal Karrakin monarchy's fleet. The Second Committee further guaranteed that the barons would remain heads of their houses and state, so long as they agreed to keep Union in supply from their vast material wealth. As a bonus, the Second Committee offered the 12 worlds of the Don Line shore, a colonial expansion area settled by Union. The barons found this agreement worthwhile. They and their descendants would remain in power, Union would foot the bill of rebuilding, and all the barons would need to do is produce raw materials and resources to feed Union's shipyards, blink station production, and other galactic infrastructure projects. War, for the Karrakins, made them appear powerful, but was costly and less profitable than peace and trade. To win without death by capturing markets was the ultimate coup, especially considering that the terms of this peace would enrich and protect Karakis, to them, the ultimate prize. Earth, or cradle, as the Unionites called it, was never the goal, so, the barons signed the new prosperity agreement, a white peace that left both sides alive and enriched. Under the terms of the new prosperity agreement, the Karrakins would formally become part of Union. They would not rule the galaxy, but that was never what they wanted. They would leave that trouble to the scheming denizens of Cradle. Since they seemed to want it so much, the barons saw that their worlds were their own prize. Union, after all, came to secure them. What more evidence could they want than the self-styled masters of the galaxy attempting to claim their home world by force? No, they decided, let Union wear that crown and wrestle with its implications, tragedies, and crimes. The barons would own the only land that mattered, Karakis, and all her colonies. With the gift worlds of the Dawnline shore added to the barons' territory, following the formal establishment of colonial dominion, or administration as the Second Committee's treaty language put it, over the populated ones, Karakis' majesty would only grow more evident. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.